Okay, we're live here in Facebook, and we're going to be live in YouTube. And so, anyway, you get to watch me do a little show prep. Now, usually I talk to you, but in this particular case, because of the nature of the day, I'm going to be finishing up. Finishing up. What am I finishing up? Oh, yeah, I'm finishing up my show notes. So here, uh, I'm going to talk as I type. So here is what we've done. I'm just doing the intro and some of the stuff to pull together. And so today it's a time to talk money. We're talking about how to build a consulting operation. Today is time to talk about money. Now, it's not going to talk about how to sell, but it's going to talk about how to have something to sell. So it's always the precursor. It helps if you have something to sell. And so today we're going to pull together with the concept of a value ladder. It's uh it's not an old concept. I mean, a new concept, been around probably about 5 years. And for that matter, one of the things about our industry that I always find bizarre, that's the word I want to use here, bizarre, is that what you constantly see is the same stuff rehashed time after time after time. And somebody comes along and they give it a new name and they go, "Oh, I got this new thing." Well, no, they don't have a new thing. They got an old thing. So I don't know what this was called before, but basically we're going to be talking about how to build a stepped ladder, an ascension. Okay. And so how do I build a system where I sell a thing and then I have other things to do? Okay. So this could be a business model known as uh, a known as cornerstoning, which I'll talk a little bit about, or a product. I'm going to use the word product. I really mean product and service uh, pyramid. So there's two ways of doing this, and I'll talk about the differences. But um, this is definitely a process that has been used for good many times. I mean, cornerstoning is how Microsoft has basically built their empire around the original package MS DOS. And so with MS DOS, what you did is you bought DOS, and then they built on top of DOS. So then suddenly you went to 3.0. Anybody remembers that? It was a fiasco. Terrible. I had bought a machine that had 3.0 on it, stripped it off. But when they came up with 3.1, a little bit better. I didn't go to Windows. I was using DOS up until 3.11, which was probably 92, let's say. I was still going to the command line and using DOS and using DOS programs. And so I was really happy with that. Personally, it worked pretty well. But then I saw 3.11 and okay, Windows finally got its act together. It didn't catch Apple, but at least got in the neighborhood. And then, of course, in 95, they come out with Windows 95. But cornerstoning is the model that Microsoft used up until I think they went to this new, I think the first one was Windows 7. Everything had at its kernel a Microsoft piece to it. So if you had Microsoft DOS, 3.11 went right on top of it. Now, if you didn't have Microsoft DOS, when you put 3.11 like I did, it installed it, and I already had it. Well, when you put 95 on, 95 was built on those other programs. So cornerstoning is when you build on the programs and you're going in some progression. Product pyramid, on the other hand, is that you don't have to buy the lower orders or offers, but the offers are set up. Let me see here. How to create a consulting value ladder. All I need to say. The rest of it's all here. Okay, I'm going to post that. So now, if you're listening on Facebook and you're here a little bit early, here's what you need to do. You need to go to the website, ibgr.network. That's ibgr.network. When you get to the website, you'll come to the navigation there at the top of the page. You'll see notes, a little bit right of center, click notes, and it will come up. And I'm going to check that as we are now at about 4 minutes before game time. And by the way, this is typically how it goes. Most of my notes are written in advance, but they're not necessarily finished until right before game time. And I'll tell you why I do that. That's just a personal approach. And for me, as I learned many years ago when I started in this industry in training, what I recognized was I didn't pick up some of the stuff, so we're going to have to resave it. What I realized was I was writing my notes the night before, and then what would happen is that when I then got out and I was on the podium and training, I didn't do my notes. Because what happened is that I had a considerable change over time about what I want to say. And so now what I'm doing is I figuratively in my head write the notes. And then right before game time, I go ahead and say, okay, this is what we're going to cover. And when I was training, we didn't, we didn't go in with a script. That was not allowed. A lesson plan was was a set of index cards because that's how well you had to know the material. But that's an inside baseball thing for those people that have worked in training. Okay. All right. So let's see what it looks like now. So if you did it, refresh. All right, there it is. It's got enough stuff there. I'll probably add a little bit to it, but the bulk of this is there. Okay. All right. So let's check our time. And we got 58. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to take everything that we've done from shows 2 through shows 5. This is show 6 in the series. Excuse me. Shouldn't do that on the air, but I couldn't avoid it. Nothing like a little coffee. And really, it really is coffee. You can't drink and get on the air. And the reason you can't drink and get on the air is pretty simple. You start mumbling. What happens? You get too much saliva, and then it just gets difficult to talk. You can't pronounce words, and so. But what we're doing is we're taking shows 2 through 5. So what we did is we talked about consulting roles and the Hippocratic Oath. We did on the 13th of July. That was show 2, show 3, selecting your practice areas, which was pretty extensive. We did on 20 July. Show 4 was selecting your consulting model. We did on the 27th. And then last week on show number 5, we took the practice and the model together. So how do you build a business? And my offer stands that if you want to, that was a pretty extensive show, and I couldn't show you exactly how to do it because it's probably a multiple day process. If you're in Facebook and you say, I want to learn how to develop what my practice ought to be, then go there. All right, I have 1 o'clock here in East Coast in New York. We're using New York as our reference time zone. And I'm broadcasting. I will be broadcasting. Oh, I am broadcasting. Yeah, I'm broadcasting live just outside of beautiful downtown Richmond, Virginia, on the James River. Pretty nice place to be. So let's get the remaining logistics. We've got about 2.5 minutes before we're on the air. Let's sign into the server. And now I'm not doing this from the studio today. Last week I was broadcasting from the studio. Today I am broadcasting from the conference room. All right, so we're going to be on in about a minute and a half. All right, and then when we get there, I'm going to start, and we're just going to rock and roll. So hopefully you're going to enjoy this. Of course, I am. I'm going to enjoy it. So don't you miss it. How's that? I mean, how's that for arrogance? Okay. All right, so let's check to see where we are in the commercials. So I'm going to put on a little sound here for a second. Here we go. Well, maybe I was.
Looking at the European startup scene, Germany is a place you cannot miss. Fortunately for you, there is startuprad.io.
All right, I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to heartily recommend to you that you check out startuprad.io or Startup Radio if you're interested in what's going on in the startup scene in Europe, mostly Germany, but really Europe. It's a place to go, and you can go check them out. Also, Jorn, who is the president of the company, is here on the air broadcasting his news show at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. New York time. And so whether you're an investor, not that we give out investing advice, or you are in the tech business and you want to understand what's going on to help you, or you're somebody who's just interested in getting venture capital, Jan kind of covers that pretty well. So I would heartily recommend that. Okay, so we're on a countdown here, and we're probably 15 seconds before we start. So allow me to go into my shtick here. Okay, you ready? Da-dun, da-dun, da-dun. So let's see. Let's do this like they really do it in the studio. Okay, so if you were in a studio, radio or television, you would go 3, 2. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever this may find you. You are listening to IBGR, the International Business Growth Radio Network. My name is William Eastman. I am the host for today's show. So let's get rocking and rolling. First thing you need to do is you need to go to the website. So let me explain that to you. IBGR stands for the International Business Growth Radio. Now, that is our call sign, just like any other terrestrial radio station here in the United States. If you're on the East Coast, you get a W, meaning east of the Mississippi. If you're on the West Coast, you get a K, meaning west of the Mississippi, obviously. Well, all radio stations have 4 letters. Now, here's what I'm here to tell you is that the first letter signifies something, and the other 3 is an alphabet soup. Not with us. IBGR stands for International. We are currently heard in 177 countries. Who hears us? That's the BG, business growth. Business owners, entrepreneurs, people in the gig economy, self-employed, anybody who is writing their own payroll checks. In other words, you're paying yourself. We have built a network that provide you information on starting, growing, or exiting your business. That's what we do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we're talking to other business owners and entrepreneurs. In fact, one of the taglines to the station is, this is a network of entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. All right, so network is our name. It is also our URL. So ibgr.network. If you go there on the URL, it'll take you to our page. It's also our broadcast frequency because the R of IBGR stands for radio. Even though we're an internet radio station, I'm here to tell you that we do not operate like internet radio. We operate like a terrestrial radio station, and we're just using the internet as a broadcast tower as opposed to getting a license from somebody, kind of going, Mother, may I? Well, no, I'm not really interested in playing the Mother, may I game. All right, when you get there, you'll come to the navigation bar toward the top of the page. You'll see notes. Click that. And when you get into that section of notes, and there's about 2,200 pages in here. So hopefully what you're looking for is right here, but I'll tell you how to handle it. If it's not, you want to open up CIB.06. Okay. Now, if in fact you get there and there's no CIB.06, something that says creating a consulting/improvement business, and today's show, that's the series. Today's show is monetizing your practice. Then right next to that, you're going to see new choice for business search. Put CIB.06, creating a consulting improvement business. Bingo, it's going to pop up. So for everybody out there listening to this as a replay, anybody listening to this as a podcast, and certainly our partners over at Startup Radio or startuprad.io, that's how you can find it. And you need it because we don't write, myself or anybody else, we don't write these for us. I know what I'm going to cover. I write these for you because I believe, and maybe it's just because how I learn, I can pick up a lot with audio, but if you want me to pick something up, you really want me to understand it, put it in front of my eyeballs. So that's what we're doing here. Okay, so it's time to talk money. Today, we're going to pull everything together with the concept of a value ladder. So if I do a quick review of what happened, and those people listening on Facebook, I apologize for this 30-second detour because we just did this. Our first show, CIB01, I gave you an overview of the season. Show 2 is we talked about what are potentially the consulting roles and a Hippocratic oath like doctors have about what you have to do as a consultant. Number 3, show 3, which we did on 20 July, is how do you select a practice area? And we talked about the major practice areas that are out there based upon a quality research report that's been going on for 30 years of my life. I don't pay for it anymore. I get it free from some friends of mine. So I'm not going to tell you what the report is, but what it does, it talks about the state of the consulting industry, but it also talks about the general practice areas. And we talked about 6 practice areas there. And I'd heartily recommend you take a look at that one. Then we talked about, okay, now I know the practice areas, which is the what I'm going to provide. All right, so now I got to get into the how. And what we did is in show 4 on the 27th of July, we talked about how to select the model. What's the how of what you're going to do? And then last week, show 5, we put them together as best we could in an hour. And I'm going to make this offer to everybody. And you can get this offer, one, by going to Facebook or to LinkedIn. And our handle on both of those social media platforms is IBGR Network. That's IBGR Network. Out, it will get you there. And when you get there, just put there, hey, I want to get some time with you on how do I put together a consulting practice and a delivery model together. Now, today's show is based on that. So that information you need to have, and if you ask for my time, you shall get it. But that offer is limited because We're running a business here, and there's not a one of us that's not putting in a 50 to 60 hour week. And I don't say that to get any sympathy because you're running a business, you are too. All right, so now, introduction. We're going to be working off something, a business model concept here. Now, this idea of the value ladder was hot 5 years ago. Man, this was the talk of the town. Like drip marketing was, what is content marketing was, and then we had the thing about your persona. Now I think it's the latest hot term is understanding the customer journey. Okay, now it's all the same stuff. And people in my business, what we try to do, we try to come up with a new name so we can sell you something, or perhaps brand it. And then when you use it, it's kind of like tissues. We don't call tissues for the most part. We call it Kleenex. All right. So that's the type of brand association you want. So let me hit it here. There are two business models out there for which this fits. One is called cornerstoning. And cornerstoning is when you build a basic product or service, and then for the customer to buy more, it has to be based on this first one. So the entry point pretty much is lower end, and each one's progressive. And what I did on Facebook before we started the show is I talked about Microsoft and Windows. This is exactly what Bill Gates did and the boys over in Redmond, Washington. And what I mean by that is they purchased the original package, which was MS-DOS, Microsoft Disk Operating System. And he bought it for 75 grand from somebody. That guy thought he got a deal, and the guy thought he took Gates, and of course Gates built $1 billion empire on that. So when you started, and I believe the first version I had was 4 dot something, and it got all the way to 5.22. Well, I experimented with Windows 3.0. Now, Windows 3.0 is built on the Microsoft platform, on the MS-DOS, okay, cornerstoning. And 3.0 sucked. It was terrible. So I took it off my machine. They came out with 3.1. I installed it on my machine. Kind of didn't use it, but I hadn't taken it off yet. Then they came up with 3.1.1 for groups, and they finally fixed it enough that it wasn't as good as the Apple operating system, but it was usable. Well, after they left 3.1.1, what did they do? They went to Windows 95. Windows 95 was built on what? MS-DOS. Windows 98, what was it built on? Windows 95. So you can see that Windows, Microsoft probably took it. I think Windows 2000 was when they began the departure away from it. That's how long ago it was. So, but that's a cornerstoning model where you start with a basic kernel of something, if I can use software terminology, and that everything else that you provide to the customer builds upon that. That is not the model we're talking today, but that's one that's very similar. The one that we're going to be talking about is the product pyramid, where what you do is you build a pyramid, a stepped ladder that you have an entry-level offer, and then you progressively go up as the customer, okay, until you get to the pinnacle. And so that's the approach that we're going to be taking here. Now, it has some real benefits to it, but let me just talk about here on our objective. I want you to leave this with the ability to create your own value ladder. And I provided an example and a series of questions. It is our value ladder, and it isn't. And what the part is that it is the macro version of it. But because of the way that the table works on this webpage, I cannot put in the whole thing. You'll never be able to read it. Okay, it would be so fine because the number of columns and rows in there are too many. But you're going to get the idea behind this. So how do you do this? Because what I'm going to say to you is this. You have to have a multiple offer of some sort. Now, you can have a multiple offer by having multiple products and services. We have 3 services, let's call it. It could be products, some of them are, but 3 services, 3 service lines is the way we refer to it around here. All right. And then we have 4 levels. Now, I'm going to be talking about 3 as the way to go. So one of the levels is your teaser, your free. And understand, if you follow me, you know that when I hear the word free, I think immoral because it devalues what you do. However, you do need stuff to give away to people. All right. And so what you can see here is that if you've got 3 different product lines or service lines and you have 3 or 4 levels, then you have anywhere from 9 to 12 things to sell. In our case, we have 9. The teaser stuff is giveaways. Now, if you do that, why would you do that? Well, number one is it gives the opportunity to tailor what you do to your customers. If you basically are just selling, well, I'm a consultant and I do X, I'm an HR consultant. Well, that's not going to take you a whole long way, because HR consultant on what? What do you do? How do we work with you? So if you're an HR consultant, and we go back to the practice areas, and you're going to be an HR consultant in compliance, and that has, I think, like 5 subdomains in it. Okay, so now what are the products or services that I'm going to offer into those subdomains? And how am I going to piece it together? All right, so accept the fact, and I'm doing just a quick review of some of the other shows. Accept the fact that if you were from the large corporate consulting community and you got used to selling time, which is what we did, and the game was pretty simple. You sold brains and you managed time. That was how it worked. Okay, and that had very good money for the company, and it had very good money for the consultant. Well, we've moved away from that particular world, especially if your target is not the large corporations, but the smaller ones, the small businesses. Was it the SMB, small and mid-sized businesses? If you're there, and that's who I'm talking to, because I'm helping you build a consulting firm predominantly there. Now, you can take what I'm covering and you can go after large corporate accounts just as easily, but I'm focused on the small business because you have a pricing problem. You're working with a major corporation, General Motors, which was on my list, or IBM was on my list. I could charge, or I could charge for other people, depending upon what role I had at the moment. I could charge anywhere from $2,500 to $4,000 a day, and they'll pay it. And the reason they'll pay it is if the person you're putting in there is of value. In other words, they really know what they're doing, and the problems that those companies face are multi-million-dollar problems. You can make it go away. I'll pay $4,000 a day for that. But now, when we're talking to business owners and smaller companies, you get thrown out of the office. He said, "What is it going to cost me?" "Oh, $4,000. Oh, for the whole thing? Oh, no, that's a day. Leave. You're out of here." Okay, because number one, they don't have the money. Number two is, you know what? I wouldn't pay you anyway. So what you need to do is you need to turn your consulting practice into an asset-based consulting practice. And in fact, that's what we talked about in show 2 and show 4. We talked about moving to an asset base where you take what you know and you put it on paper, so to speak. Of course, it's all on electrons in the computer, but you get the idea. In other words, if I have a consulting process that I use, and there are like 3 steps, I take people through an assessment, and then we've got the report to discuss what's going on, and then we've got how do we come up with an alignment meeting. Each one of those individually could be a product or a service that you could offer. And so one is you sell one of them, and the customer wants more, they buy the others, or you bundle them together. So you're already with me there. All right. So here's what I'm going to say to you, and I'm going to build on this. I would have a level 0 as your teaser. All right, but we're not going to get serious about that. You just need to know what you're going to use to tease people to continue the sales process. Whether you use it to get the sales call, or this is the follow up for the sales call. Typically, I use them as the follow up for the sales call, or I use them as a promotional device. But you've got level 1, level 2, and level 3 to your offer. Okay, and so here's the basic that we're going to work from. And this is all in the notes as we drill down. Number 1 is level 2 is the offer. Let's just start there. The offer is level 2. What you want here is you would want, if everybody bought this, what would that be? Now, in the way that I have built our value ladder, and you do not have to follow this, just use it as an example, is that level 2 and 3 are bundles. I bundle stuff together. Level 1 is individuals. Okay, so an individual product, an individual tool, an individual job app, something of that nature. Okay, it's an individual thing. I'm selling parts. Like if somebody wants to buy a car, level what? Level 3 would be, it would be fully assembled and drivable. And any of you that bought a kit car, you know what I'm talking about. Level 2 would be all of the parts in a box, but you got to assemble it. And level 1 would be you can buy the individual parts, just using that as an example. All right. So, but level 2 is your core offer, and build there. Don't worry about any of the other levels. Build 2 first. Then we'll go up and down and work on the others. By the way, you build 2 first and you build a teaser last. Okay. So, as we talked about, bundle based on your value ladder. Okay. And so you're building an asset based consulting firm so that what you can do is you can have products that you can sell, things that the customer are DIY. Because in the consulting process, there are a lot of things that don't require your expertise. I know that's hard to believe, but there are things that you can DIY. And so do it yourself is a great place to go. And of course, do it yourself is your foot in the door. All right. So now let's talk about another concept here, and that is automate non-personal functions. So one of the ways you can look at this is if I map the process, and this is the way that I did it for the consulting business when we moved from a subject matter expert base to an asset base. We mapped the entire process of consulting from beginning to end. Number two is what here can we automate so that we don't have to get humans involved. And the reason for that is time. See, time is a finite property. Let me play a game with you, and I do this a lot. This particular analogy, if you followed any of the other stuff I've done on consulting, you get this one, and that is I'm going to have a sale today, and I want you to buy. It's only today. I'm going to use the immediacy and scarcity as part of my sales technique. I want you to buy last week. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer you 50% off on last week. Now, how many of you thinking I've lost my mind? And the answer is, yeah, in this case I have. But it brings the point is that time, once it's gone, is gone. And so be very, very judicious about how you use time. Because if I build products and they're not moving and they're sitting on the shelf, what can I do? I can have a product sale. I can say to you, hey, today only 50% off of our assessment package. I can say that. And you're going to go, well, maybe I'll buy it. But if I go back and say, hey, personal coaching, I'm going to give you 10 hours of personal coaching. Oh, yeah, it was last week and it's 50% off. You're going to go, yeah, I don't think I'm going to buy that. All right. Now, here is our model for consulting. All right. So I'm going to give you kind of a way of looking at this. So if you're going to break this down, and it's what we call FIT. Now, I worked hard at coming up with an acronym. I particularly don't like acronyms, and I usually, what's the word I want to use here that's appropriate? I typically pick on people or organizations that do this, like SMART goals. I mean, come on. I heard about SMART goals 35 years ago, and there's still people out there doing it. Specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, trackable. Okay, but this one works. And this is based upon what we were doing. It was almost a coaching model, as a matter of fact. What we were doing in General Motors plants to raise productivity and do it in a way that we didn't have the union balk at what was going on. So this was not what we were doing with the union, but this is what we were doing with supervisors, managers, all the way up to plant manager. So first of all, in the process, the first element in consulting is what I call focus. All right. What you're looking for here is leverage. What is the one thing that you can help them do that if they do it will have the maximum impact with the least investment of resources? Okay, got that? Leverage. It comes back from Archimedes when Archimedes made that comment. What about 200 BC? Someplace in there when he said, if you give me a pole or a lever long enough, I could lift the world. Leverage. And so you're looking for where is the leverage. So do you have assessments? Do you have surveys? Do you do interviews? If you're asking a recommendation from me, I'm telling you to do both, because what assessments and surveys give you is usually quantitative data. In other words, stuff that you can crunch numbers on. And you do need that because that's kind of the skeleton of the report that you're going to give them. It's a skeleton of your analysis. On the other hand, interviews is qualitative in that what you're getting now is how people feel, what they think, And typically, no matter how tight you write an assessment or a survey, you're not going to capture everything, nor are they going to be able to express everything in a numeric value. So by doing the interviews, I am now collecting all this information, and then the next step in that process is to do a thematic analysis. Okay, I'm getting technical on you, but here, what is it? What are the themes? In other words, you may have 10 people who have given you all these interviews, and you spot about 12 things in there. 12 things pop out, themes that keep coming up, and then you kind of work them, and it's probably not 12, it's probably more like 5 or 6. And you kind of meld them down, you come up with the right terminology, you take that, and you add that to the report, and now you've got meat on the bones. And that's what you want to do here. So on the assessment, the goal here on this focus phase, I should say, is to give the customer information to go, where is the leverage point? And the minimization, the maximization of impact at the minimization of resources could be financial. It could be bodies. In other words, how many people are they going to put on this? It could be time. But what you're basically saying to them is, I'm trying to get the most for you with the least investment you can make, of which I'm part of. But if you look at, they need 3 or 4 people on this job, you're cheap compared to the payroll, benefits, and everything that they're paying. What you want them to do is focus on one thing. Now, the other thing that's going to come out of this is the process of developing the root cause. Really, what you're looking at is, if they're looking to get leverage on something, it isn't going to work if they don't stick the pole in the right spot. Right? Kind of well said, I guess. And so between all of that, what we come out of the focus piece is with a clear picture of today, as accurate as we can get it, with the identification of root cause as close as we can get to it, and that's where we're going to stick the pole. Now, improve, the next phase here is where your training, coaching, and consulting comes in, where you basically are helping them close the gap. Now, again, you could do a lot of platform work, like with the assessments and surveys, even the interviews. Now, the assessments and surveys, you can do all that electronically. Interviews, yeah, you might need to show up at the plant, but you could probably also do this now using virtual technology. But that doesn't have to have all of a service component to it in terms of time expended. Improve is the same way, is that I can be using platforms to train, coach, and consult all the time. But what you're doing is you say, if this is the root cause, then what are we going to do? What is our plan of attack to close the gap between where we are and where we need to be on that point? And then as you're going through this, the last part of this is track. Now, tracking is going to be going on the whole time, because as we're making progress, what do I want to do? I want to know whether we're off track or on track so I can give them feedback. But also at the end of this comes a report where we look at what we invested versus what we got. So that's the process that we use. So when I break down consulting, I put it through those phases and say, okay, now we could sell a focus piece. There's a service there on helping people identify root cause and leverage points. Done. We don't have to do any more if we don't want to. We can have an improvement piece where we say, okay, here are the 5 common problems that you have would go into lean manufacturing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We know their problem falls in one of those, and we got a package there that we can sell. Or we can show them how to track project metrics and do that type of training. Or I can bundle this together, and I can bundle this together to say, we'll take one leverage point, and that's what we'll do. Or I can bundle this to say, we'll take a leverage point and we'll train your people to do it the next time. Well, I just gave you 5 different offers to my value ladder right there off the cuff. Of course, now I've done this before, so I guess that would be. I think, yeah, I got the rest of that. So like, what can't you do? Okay. All right. So the only thing I'd recommend here on the consulting side, so this is a kind of a consulting piece before we get into all of the goodies down here, is that I really recommend that you do the interviews in person if at all possible, because there is something about walking the property that will give you what you need. There's a certain amount of ambiance to a work setting. All companies have a pulse. All companies have a frequency. All companies have a hum. What is it? And you're not going to get this any other way. All right, what do you need to do? Now, this is going to get us into the bulk of where we're going. Now that I laid it out for consulting, okay, so that was consulting, or you could say coaching, training, focus, coaching and consulting, really. Now, what you need to do is I don't care what you're selling. This applies to everything. This is generic. I am going to stay in the consulting and coaching role here, but that's where I'm at. Now, before I go out, and I think I got like what? Let's pull up the Mickey Mouse clock. I have 2 minutes. So if you scroll all the way down past the table, which we will talk about, down to the very bottom, the world of business at your fingertips. Okay. If you want any of these materials, if you want any help or support from me on these materials, this is the easiest way to get this done. And that is one, go to our Facebook group, which is, well, you're there. I mean, you're on our business page, which is IBGR Network without the decimal point or period. If you're a LinkedIn person, it's the same thing. Go there. We have groups. We have the IBGR Growth Community at LinkedIn. Join that group. They're private groups, or you can join the Facebook group, which is Build Your Business Today. And then the last thing I want to say is the mobile app. I'll come back to this when we come back from the break. But on the mobile app, what I want to say to you here is that imagine you had all the resources of the IBGR network, all of the hosts, all the intellectual property, almost a millennium in experience. For those people out there, we're close to 1,000 years of business experience. Everybody on the air here is a serial entrepreneur. You want immediate access to us or it in terms of the information and materials, download our app. And each one of those are a link that you see on the page, but quite easily, what you can do is you go to ibgr.app, and we have a button to take you to the Apple Store, or one to take you to Google Play, or just pull it up on your mobile device. Just look for IBGR or Business Growth Radio. There's the app. It's free, access to everything. And the thing I love about this, and I love the alliteration. This is even better than coming up with the stupid ass SMART goals. Let's try this one. Solutions on demand in the palm of your hand. How's that for alliteration? I should be a Baptist minister. Okay, with that, we will be right back. I need to take a break. So you're listening to IBGR, the International Business Growth Radio Network. My name is William Eastman. I am host for today's show. And this show is, or podcast, CIB.06, Creating a Consulting and Improvement Business. That's the series. And this show is Monetizing a Practice. And we'll be right back. All right. So for all the people out there who are watching on Facebook, that's what a 30-minute show looks like. Now, this will go to our podcasting platform. I have a podcast there. So if you go to we're changing stuff. So here, I hate to say this to you, I actually have to look at where the hell is my stuff. All right. So if you go to our Facebook page, our internet page, ibgr.network, and you go to the network, and you go to us, and you go to North America, you'll see my name. Okay, so the network, us, North America, and you go to my name, and then what will happen there? When you get there, hopefully it doesn't start playing radio. I think it will, though. It's automatic. What you have is a list of every one of my. Oh, it's not going to be. Oh, there. See, I told you. By the way, that's what's playing. And what you have here is all of my podcasts. So if you want to get more of that material, you can do that. The other option you have is you can search out if you go back to the home page, you can search out our show notes and get access to everything we have. Okay. So business owners and entrepreneurs around the world who are doing show and podcast. All right. I hate that automatic radio stuff, but you know why we do the automatic radio? This is most bizarre, but I got to tell you this. You're not going to believe it. There is a radio button, listen live, on every page. And I've had comments from people going, how do I listen to your show? I'm like, okay. And so you could make some snide comments about that, but I'm not going to do that. Well, I'm simply going to say to you, okay, I get it. So it automatically loads. All right, we're getting down to it. I think I got like 20 seconds left. So we'll do the old routine here, like if we were at the radio station and you are in front of the microphone and I'm behind the glass and I'm the studio engineer. And what would I be doing? I would be doing this. Yes. And notice I won't use that finger. I'll be going 3, 2. And we're back. You're listening to IBGR, the International Business Growth Radio Network, heard in 177 countries around the world, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are a network of entrepreneurs talking to entrepreneurs. If you've got any issues, any concerns, any aspirations to start, grow, or exit a business and get your money's worth out of it, this is the place to be. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. My name is William Eastman. I'm the host for the show. And this series is something that I'm doing for my colleagues out there who are in the consulting business. As a matter of fact, my focus on this is how do you start? If you want to get into the consulting business, I'm giving you the step-by-step of how you get it done. How do you build a consulting firm? I've built several consulting firms. I've had one or two not do well, so I have that experience. And I've had a couple that do exceedingly well. The one I'm most proud of is not the one where we went from 3 to 46 million as partnering with another company, because they get credit for some of that. The one I'm most proud of is where we went from 0 to 10 million, 9.8 really, but we'll round to 10. Who cares? Million, 100,000 here, 100,000 there. 0 to 10 million. I'm cracking myself up. You can't be doing that on the air. But 0 to 10 in 3 years. 0, no money on day one, no money, no clients. And we grew it to $10 million. And now here is even the better achievement of all the things that I've achieved in business. This is the one. Our gross margin fluctuated between 47 and 43% in a service-based industry. The industry average is someplace between 25 and 30, and we were doing it between 40 and 47. Okay, 43 to 47 was the range. That's a stunt. You know how we did it? You're listening to it right here. This whole series is how we did it. And right now, I'm giving you kind of the inside track of how we pulled this off. So for those of you listening to this, this is part 2. Now, you need to go to the website. If you're not there, got to get there. And that's ibgr.network. When you get to the website, you'll see notes on the navigation bar. Click it. And then when you get to that page, if you're listening live, you'll know that because there are 2,200 pages of show notes. There are a lot of people coming up today, who are going to be on the air. And you'll see right there on that page, CIB.06, creating a consulting or improvement business. That's a CIB. I really wanted to call this creating an improvement business, but I didn't want people going, well, I thought we were going to learn how to put in a new bathroom. Okay. I don't friggin' know how to put in a new bathroom, nor do I care how to put in a new bathroom. Now, if you're talking about how to rebuild an Alfa Romeo 2000cc engine with Spica mechanical fuel injection, we have a conversation. But if you're talking about a house, leave me out, all right? And that's why I live in a tent. So this show is on monetizing your practice, and what we're doing is we're pulling it together. So now if you're listening to this as a replay or as a podcast later on, and this is not on the first page, new choice for business search, put in CIB.06, creating consulting / improvement business, it's going to pop. And again, I don't write this for me. This would save me a good hour every day. Every day I have a show. This is for you, so you ought to be looking at it. All right, so where we were in the first, this is part 2. This is podcast 2. So where we left this off is we started on what you need to do. So everything up before that, kind of the explanation, how we approach consulting and all that. If you want that information, please listen to podcast number 1, because I got a ton of stuff to do here. All right, so now what do you need to do? That's where I need you on the page. All right, so some of this is a review, some of this is new. Now, I think on the first couple 1 through 3, we talked about in shows 2 and 3, okay, and 4. So we talked about them there. So 1 is make a list of everything you know. So let's start from scratch. You've been working as a consultant with other people. You've been selling nothing but your time. All right, so let's sit down and let's make a list of everything you know. Right? Just brainstorm it out, everything you got. Now, once you're done with that, organize the list into potential products and services. And I'm going to heavily lean on you, productize, unless you can't. Now, I could put in there automate, but we're not going to have a conversation about automation. This is about a value ladder. Okay. Once you've done that, number 3 is refine and finalize the product and service list. What you don't want is 3,000 things on the menu. Right? You're going to have 3 or 4 apps, or starters. You're going to have 3 or 4 salads or soups. You're going to have 3 or 4 entrees, 3 or 4 desserts. Done. Right? That customers actually like that better, because one of the things I think when I go into a restaurant that's got 20 entrees, and it's got fish, and it's got pork, and it's got beef, and it's got lamb, and is can they cook all this well? Whereas, and typically in a restaurant like that, what do I buy? The chef special, unless I don't like exactly what they prepared. Why? Because they actually made it today, and it's the chef special. Guess what? The chef likes making it. Well, here, what I want to do is the same thing. You're the chef. What is it that you would really like to do for your customers? And hold that in mind, because we're going to get to it. All right. Now, number 4, create a spreadsheet or a table. I recommend a spreadsheet because at some point you're going to start putting in numbers and tables. You got to get out a calculator. The spreadsheet, you can get the numbers to compute. All right. And so you want to lay that out. Then label, it says roles. That should say rows. I'll fix that here in a second. Number 5, label your columns by level and choose delivery method. There is more to this. Let's keep it simple. You get the idea. Now, here's the deal. All your products and services, you're going to line in rows. They're going to go from left to right. All of your bundling offers, how you're going to assemble it, are all in columns, okay? And that goes up and down. And so once I arrange the spreadsheet that way, it gives me the ability to begin to think through what you have. Now, what I put on here on the list that I'm giving you is rudimentary, as I said in the first podcast, because there's no way I could list our offer and get it on this page. So that's what you're dealing with here. All right, so now let's go down to number 6. Complete the spreadsheet or table. Now, I said it earlier. Let's go here. Build level 2 first and make it a bundle. In other words, this is your sweet spot for the sweet spot. Now, if you're a baseball player, visualize this. If you're a baseball player, as I was and I played through college, is that the size of the sweet spot on a baseball bat is if you put 2 fingers together. People watching on Facebook, 2 fingers together, okay, like that. And the sweet spot on a baseball is this big. So what I want to do is if I want to be an effective hitter, I have to match sweet spot to sweet spot. What we're talking about here is your sweet spot is your target audience. Who is the absolute perfect customer for you? And then therefore, given what you know and what you can do and what you can deliver, what is the perfect offer for them? And that is your core offer. And that is number 2. And you build it first. You absolutely build this one first, because I'm going to be talking about a rule that I use called the 60-80 rule, not the 80-20. That rule applies, the Pareto principle. But the 60-80 is the rule of gross margin and percentage of sales. We'll get to that in a second. Once you've built level 2 and you've gone across all the table, and if you want to scroll down while I'm talking, you can see what I built. Then number 3, the second step here, is you want to go to level 3 or whatever the top offer is. And you want to basically build that. Now, that is the primo. That is everything. That's the kitchen sink. That's everything that you want. Or I should say everything you absolutely could do. There's nothing more that you are capable of doing. Level 2 probably doesn't contain all of that. Now you want to build level 1, okay? And the way that I have done this for years, and it works the best for me, you choose how you want to do this, is I make level 1 a singular product or service, where level 2 and 3 are bundles. And now, if you think about the ease of that, is level 1 is all the stuff just laid out. Level 2 is I've assembled those pieces based upon what I think the customer wants. And level 3 is I've assembled all the pieces. Okay. So that's it. And then level 0 is your teaser. Do that one last. And now the goal of the teaser is, what can I give the customer as part of the sales process, as part of marketing collateral, that will get them in the door? It's not necessarily that the teasers to get them to level 1, and then I'm going to work my way up. You don't have as an objective, I'm going to start everybody at level 1, and then I'm going to work them to level 2. That's not the case. Everybody's going to be different for what they want to buy, when they want to buy it, what they want to pay. So the levels give them options. The teaser is simply to get them in the game so they're making one of those choices. All right. So now some questions to ask yourself. Let's get a little bit more what would I say here? Discreet, but I'm talking about fine here. I'm going from macro to micro. All right. So first question you want to ask yourself after you built level 2. Can you sell level 2? Yes or no? Now, what's the qualifications on it? If you were talking about selling 1 unit a year, I'm sure I don't care what you put in there, you probably could sell it. Here is now the metrics you want to use. Can you sell your core with a 60% gross margin and sell enough of it that it makes up 80% of your sales? The 60-80 rule. Let me stop and talk about those numbers. 60% gross margin. I heartily recommend that if you're start from scratch on pricing and you're building something for a customer, start with the mindset that I want a 60% margin on that. Now, when I say gross margin, it's kind of collective. So let's just stick with the word margin. I want to produce my level 2 that if we sell it at the unit price or at the pricing that we currently have, that it has a margin of 60%. You see, now, all of you business owners out there know. Now, somebody's going, wow, you mean I take 60 cents home out of the dollar home? No, you don't. Because you still got overhead, you still got fixed costs, you still got other things to pay. But if you said to yourself, gee, I want to run at least a minimum of 25% profitability a year. In other words, if we're $1 million company, I want to make $250,000. I can tell you right now, if your margins are not 50 plus, you're not going to get 25 plus in profitability. Now, you could be the exception. There are industries out there where that's possible. I'm just telling you, after 4 decades, this is what I've seen. The second I look at the gross margin, I can almost predict what their profitability is at the end of the year. So that's why the 60%. Now, what that forces you to do is, one is this a second level, a level 2, a core product or service? Because if all I can get is 30% on it, maybe it's in the wrong spot. Or number 2 is I haven't looked at it hard enough. Maybe what I need to do is go back and look at my processes that we're using to develop this, because my cost is too high. Because no matter where we are, most of us are operating in a market-based economy where pricing is established by what the market will pay, and you got to work backwards. Very seldom do you have the luxury of having cost plus, where it costs, you charge whatever it costs to make, plus you put your margin on it. And so if I start backwards and look at it, and I have a 45% margin on this, I'm going to sharpen my pencil, and I'm going to see if I can find another 10%. Now, if it turns out I can get 52, 53%, I'm probably rolling. Okay. 60 is my target. But if I can get over 50, I'm probably rolling. If it's in the top 40s, maybe. If it's in the low 40s, probably not. If it's in the 30s, no. Not going to do it. Now, I'm not going to make it as my core offer. I am not going to try to drive 80% of my sales there either. Okay. Now, well, I'll let that go. We'll talk about that later. So that is the one question. Can I sell this and make this 80% of all the revenue I bring in is on this core offer? And can I get a 60% gross margin? Use that as your targets. And when you're building your offer, use that as a way of, well, what goes in and what doesn't? Because sometimes people go, well, do I include this? Okay, what's the cost of doing? What can you charge for it? What does that do to your margin? All right. Now, number 2, if your customer buys level 2, does it do everything they need, or is there something missing? The thing about level 2 is it's got to be comprehensive. If you're selling consulting services, what you don't want to do halfway down the road with this client is try to upsell them to level 3 because you can't finish the project for what they bought. If they buy level 2, it's got to do the deal, right? Level 3 has got other stuff in it. Level 1, now if they buy level 1, In the sales process, you're going to say, okay, I'll tell you what, let's do it this way. Let's start here at this level here. Now, when we get to this point, we're going to have to make some decisions. So I'll do your deal. One is you can buy these individual services, which will drive the price up more than when we get there. I'll prorate level 2 for you. In other words, you've already paid so much into it, and you only have to pay level 2 going forward. And so that's a better deal. Now, that is admissible, and I've done that a few times. But fundamentally is your level 2 has to be comprehensive. It has to provide what you tell the customer is going to provide. And you can't set level 2 up to where in order for it to work, you got to upsell. You're going to lose accounts left and right. And I don't consider it ethical. All right, number 3, level 3. Does it cover everything you can do or deliver? That's what you're going to put in level 3. Now, the other thing here is, well, let's talk about that first. So you bundle everything in the universe together and you put it in there. And now let's go to price. What I want to do is I want to price level 2 at something where I get my 60 or at least 50 plus margin. That price may be higher than I'm comfortable charging. That's always true. As a business owner, you're always looking at it going, don't want to charge that. Okay. Here's what I'm going to say to you. The way you handle that is you use level 3 to anchor the price. Jack the price up on 3, okay, to where it is not much more, but enough more that it makes 2 look, wow, what an offer. I get all of that for that price. So level 3, because you're going to sell some of these, okay? So what level 3 could do is it anchors the pricing at level 1. And when we come back to the sales mix, I'll hit you with this. All right. And then finally, number 4 is level 1 enough to meet expectations with 1% more than they expected. What you want to do with this is, even if they're buying the bargain basement approach, they're buying your minimum product or service or offer, you want to still excite them. Why? Because I want to upsell them. See, the deal here is that if they're in level 2, am I really trying to upsell them? Probably not, because what they're getting is the entire offer. Now, am I trying to sell them something else when the project's over? Of course I am. But during a project, I'm not. With level 1, on the other hand, level 1 is an upsell. And so what I want to make sure is I set some expectations on this minimum offer, and I make sure that not only do I meet what expectations I created in the sales process, but I put just a tinge more in there, just 1% more, and I positively delight them with that and go, wow, I didn't think I got that. And you can say, well, I gave you a little taste of what we're doing up at 2. Okay, something like that. But if you do that for level 1, they're going to love your offer. And number 2 is going to give you the opportunity to upsell. Because again, level 1 is usually not a bundle, or if it's a bare bones bundle, but usually it is they're buying individual products and services. All right, now the last thing on pricing for level 1 is, can you break even? In other words, if you sold 100% of all your sales was level 1, have you at least paid all your bills? Last thing to say here, it's not on here. It would be at number 6 if I put it up there, and that is, if you look at this, my objective with this is me talking now, is that I would sell 15% of all my sales would be level 1, 80% of all my sales would be level 2, and 5% of my sales would be level 3. Now, who knows once you get started how it goes, but you may require that you manipulate the offer. It may require that you manipulate the price. It may require that you look for more automation in your system to take out costs. But this will start you hard and start you fast. Now, let me tell you what we're doing here. So this is almost like an advertisement here for IBGR. We basically have 3 service lines, 3 things we sell here. We have host. You get a spot like me. You have advertisers. We have a few advertisers on here, but we haven't gone after that aggressively yet for a number of reasons. And then you have members. And that is, what if you want more than listening and you would like to get access to the tools? Well, that would start in either a Facebook group or a LinkedIn group, but we have our own platform where we can help you grow your company. All right. So those are our 3 offers. So let's see what we did here. Our level 0, our teaser, okay, is we encounter somebody that we think would make a great host. What do I offer them in the sales process? Oh, you ought to be on an interview. Come on, I got a show here. Let me tell you what shows I got going on, and let me bring you in as an interviewee. And we're batting about 50% on that because they get to do it. And there's some magic about being live on the air. I can't tell you exactly what it is, except it's there. All right. And then if you take a look at what we did at level 1, is that you get a weekend podcast. You give us a recording. We'll give you a time clock. You tell us what's in it, and we'll run it on the weekends. Level 2, the one that we looking to sell the most of, and that's you get a variable spot. Okay. And a variable spot is because we're running 24/7 operations. There are 2 time zones that we're in that change based upon savings time or daylight time. And we have 2 zones that don't change. So basically, if you're in North America, you're guaranteed your time slots that are guaranteed are 10 to 4. Those are all, 12 to 4. Those 4 time slots always will be yours. On the other hand, if you have the 5 o'clock time slot here, when Australia changes its time because it moves in the opposite direction, then the 5 o'clock spot becomes the 11 o'clock spot. And then when we shift here in North America, the 6 o'clock slot becomes the 11 o'clock slot because the 11 o'clock becomes the 10. So you're in a variable spot, whereas if you're in a fixed spot, that means you're in the 12 to 4. Nothing is ever going to change. Now, the media, if it's a podcast, it's a recording, then it's live. And advertisers, you can see what we're doing with advertisers. So I'm not going to take you through the whole offer, but I thought I would demonstrate. And of course, there's so much here in each one of these I couldn't put in. But for example, I've got an advertiser that I would like to have, and so it's brand building. Then what I'll do, let's say I've got a funding service that funds businesses and alternative banks, and they can fund all over North America, United States, and Canada. I probably want to put them on because you, the listener, can get some value from that, and that will give me the opportunity to do what? Sell them on advertising. So you can see how that goes. And then on membership, as we talked about, here are 3 membership levels. And so you're a member, our lowest level, you're a member of our group in LinkedIn or Facebook. And what happens here is we give away free specials. Like I just gave away one. If you go in there, either LinkedIn or Facebook, into the group, so it's IBGR Network, that will get you to the business page. And then on the LinkedIn side is the IBGR Growth Community. And then on the Facebook side, it's Build Your Business Today. You get in. I'll give you help if you want to grow your consulting firm. So you just got an hour of consulting from me. And back in the day when I charged pretty heavy for this. So that's what you get. But here in this particular case, it's not an ongoing thing. It's just we throw a special out. Whereas at the minimum level, you get access to tools of the show. Every show that they're talking about tools, you get access to it. You get on our platform, you get access to it, and it's $100 a year. What a deal. On the other hand, if you want access to the entire suite, because no way I can talk about everything, then you take the next offer, and then finally, you take what is called a fractional executive, where now we're spending really concentrated time with you, and that is $6,000 a year. And in fact, we're running our first incubator. So how we deliver this? Social media, the IBGR platform, and our incubator and accelerators are where we're doing this. Okay. So that's just an example of how to do it. But I heartily recommend, and I don't care if you're not in the consulting business or the coaching business, I don't care what you're doing, pyramiding or building a value ladder of your offer is a bright move. It gives you an opportunity to multiply your sales by having the ability to upsell. And all of you have heard me say it many times, is that it costs you 5 times as much to acquire a new account as it does to sell to an existing account. So even on your low margin stuff that you sell to new customers, it's not a bad margin when you sell it to existing customers. All right, the last thing, the world at your fingertips. We talked about it before the break. I'm going to come back to it. You need to be following us on Facebook or LinkedIn. Got it? Period. Do it. IBGR Network, either one. When you get there, join the groups. You know what's there for you because you can see that's part of our level 0 offer. And I just made you an offer that you can get some consulting expertise from me on building your consulting company. Now, the mobile app is just cool. and we're constantly upgrading it, and it's in its third generation right now. But fundamentally, is everything that we do, everything that we have, you can get from your mobile device. As I said before, the alliteration is perfect. Solutions on demand in the palm of your hand. So if you click that link, it'll take you there to our website, ibgr.app, or you can go to your Apple store and ask for IBGR or Business Growth Network. You'll get it. Or you can go to Google Play and do the same thing, IBGR or Business Growth. So I want to say to you, I greatly appreciate you listening and allowing me to riff. This is a topic that I have done for a long time. And though, well, I was going to say to you, I'm out of the consulting business, but really we're not, because what is IBGR? IBGR is a consulting and coaching company. Think about it. We're just using radio as a medium to get information out to you. And then we've set up a platform, and that platform, what our thought process on that platform is this: we are what the Chamber of Commerce isn't, never was, and never will be. If you are under $5 million and under 50 employees and you're trying to grow this thing, or you've got this dream and you're trying to start it, or you've been doing it for a while and you're concerned whether or not you're going to get your true value out of the company, why are you anyplace else? Because nobody else, and I know this to be true, this is not hyperbole, this is not me being blind to competitors, because I know who's out there and who we're competing with. Nobody's assembled what we got. Nobody's assembled what we got. And on top of it, we got our own news bureau. And we're growing, and we'll have incubators ongoing, which is for pre-startup or when you first open your doors. And then once we get our incubator out of running, not out of the way, but running in September, look for next season, October through December. We'll have a first accelerator where your thing is, all right, we're doing all right, but the company is not earning what it ought to be earning. All right, so with that, I greatly appreciate you listening. You've been listening to the IBGR Network. My name is William Eastman. I'm the host of the show. This is CIB.06. The series is Creating Consulting or Improvement Practice, and today's show is Monetizing Your Business. Absolutely go nowhere. There is no better programming on planet Earth. I'll say it again. There's no better programming on planet Earth than the IBGR Network. It's here for you to take. Ciao. Wait a minute. Oh, yeah, everybody. I forgot. I let this run for 9 minutes. I'm sorry.